Never thought I'd hear myself say this, but I actually really enjoyed being time restricted today. It's been a very long time now since I've had a time restricted session. And they used to be quite difficult for me. I used to find them very difficult. I used to get caught up in clock watching and wasting a lot of time and a lot of energy thinking about the fact that I don't have much time because of how accustomed I was to having just endless time in the gym. However, today was really enjoyable. It was really fun. I had one thing that I knew I wanted to focus on, which is something that I've been playing with a little bit recently. And to be honest, I'm not really too sure what you'd call it. A friend of mine calls it reverse squatting. I write it down in my logbook as like hip flexor curls. But simply put, it's a hip flexor raise, like a leg raise. However, we've been playing with them on the cable recently, and I've found that it's allowed me to really connect to my hip flexor and get a lot of blood and a lot of work into the little nook that is the hip flexor. And it's something that I used to do from time to time with my monkey foot standing up. However, I never felt as connected to the hip flexor that was working like I do now. And I think that's partly because of the nature of the monkey foot. You're on a standing leg, so your one leg's planted, and that leg is, believe it or not, actually under quite a lot of load and has to do quite a lot of stabilizing work, which is taxing. Whereas when I do it with the cable machine, I'm lying on my back, I'm able to engage my core really well, flatten my back really well, which, believe it or not, actually negates your core in the movement. I remember watching a video from Squat University, and he was explaining how it's very important when training your hip flexor, doing what I'm going to coin hip flexor curls, that you engage your core before you do the lift, because if you don't, your core will overcompensate the top portion, and it will take stress or load off of your hip flexor. Whereas if your core is stiffened prior to you raising your leg, then the majority of the focus, if not all of the focus, is on the hip flexor. And since watching that video and accepting the fact that it's an area that I really need to work on, I have had the time of my life training this. I've really enjoyed it. Interestingly, the other day I tried it before doing some pause squats in the hope that it would make my squats feel much better and would alleviate the pinching sensation I get when I squat from time to time. It's not all the time. I don't always get a pinching sensation, but I've always had a hip flexor problem on my left leg. And it's a pretty simple explanation if you ask me. Having played football for so long, my left leg is a lot more stiff than my right leg. It's much more rigid. However, there's parts of it that are also a lot weaker, especially at the inserts where my leg muscles connect to my pelvis. And it makes sense because being so dominantly right-footed playing football my whole life, all I ever did was plant with my left leg, whereas my right leg was swinging all over the place. So my inserts, my hip inserts and my glutes on my right leg is quite strong. It's used to pulling itself backwards and throwing itself forwards. Whereas on my left leg, my glute med is quite weak and my glute is very inactive. And in the same breath, my hip flexor is a lot shorter and a lot weaker. So it's something that needs addressing, needs targeting. And I've really enjoyed playing with it in these. I'm not too sure how many days it's been now, but in the few days that I've been back to freestyling and just getting in and feeling my body and determining what's going to be worked in that very moment rather than having a plan. And I'll be honest, I'm falling in love with it again. I am starting to enjoy it again. It's a nice experience. I was struggling towards the end of my program. However, I feel like I'm, in many ways, in a weird way, reconnecting with the gym again by surrendering to it, just pulling up and taking whatever it gives me, just going with the flow and kind of existing in the space and just taking each step as it comes, whatever that may be. So I really enjoyed today. Excuse me. I really enjoyed today. Really enjoyed today. I'm not too sure what I'm going to do tomorrow. I have a couple of things in mind, couple of things I wanted to play with today that I just didn't have the time to. So we'll see where tomorrow takes us. If you made it this far, thank you very, very much, and I shall see you tomorrow.